Hey guys, Kata here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today's video is all about backward bending. I get asked a lot about how to deepen backward bends or get into more fuller expressions of backward bending postures. And since we're all in quarantine, I thought it would be a really great time to make a video all about the drills and warm-ups that I use to get into some of those deeper variations of backward bending. So whether you want to get into a deeper variation of camel or whether you want to deepen your standing backward bend, today's drills are going to help you open up the spaces that are really important for getting deeper into the backward bend. Let's go ahead and dive on in. If you don't already have your mat, grab your mat, and you'll also need a hand towel. So kind of a longer one if you have it. And you can also use a really long like bath towel or beach towel. If your shoulders are really tight, then I would suggest getting a longer towel. You can always go in on the longer towel, but if your towel kind of taps out at like this, then, and your shoulders can't manage this, then it's nicer to have a little bit more space. So just have that handy and let's get started. So I always start any sort of drill or class or anything with some sun salutations. So I usually do about 5 or so. I would say at the least you want to do at least 3. If you can get in 5, then that's always the best. So 5 sun salutations just to get the body nice and warm, and then you can move on to all the other stuff that you're really looking to kind of dive on in so that you can start to deepen your back bend. So let's meet on the mat right there. Okay, so once you're a little bit warmed up, it makes everything a little easier to get into. So always give yourself the opportunity to do at least a few sun salutations just to kind of lubricate your body a little bit. And then the kind of blood pumping will help to just warm things up. So it's a little easier to get into the drills and the warm-ups, and a little easier to, or rather you're more likely to not injure yourself. So the next thing that we're gonna do is just a shoulder opener. So you're actually gonna take your towel and grab it from end to end on its longest point. And then you'll take it into your hand and wrap, and you can grab really far, and I would start really far if you're just getting started. The farther you grab, the more space you'll have, and you'll have the opportunity to kind of pull it in as you go. So with your hands nice and wide, I covered myself up. With your hands nice and wide, you'll take your arms up and over. And you'll just do a few. I would just do 5. And then we'll do one more. Good, and then for me that was pretty easy, and so I'll just take a little bit in. And you'll go in, keep going in until you find the spot that's like, ooh, yeah, that's tender. You want to be able to move fully, but you also want it to feel a little bit like a challenge. You're trying to open up the rotation in your shoulders. So a lot of backward bending has to do with the shoulders, rotating and being able to move back beyond your head so that eventually you can really squeeze and pull the arms back behind you. And this mobility through the shoulders is really important when it comes to our backward bending, especially when it comes into things like camel or kapotasana, when you go into a fuller expression of camel. So with the grip in a little closer, we'll just take it again through the rotation. And you really want to make sure that the elbows stay straight. Sometimes if the shoulders are tight, one elbow wants to bend a little bit. So you want to come to the place where you feel like you can still keep your elbows and arms straight, and you find that nice full rotation. And I'll just do 2 more. It always feels really good. And then that's it. So then I'll take it in another notch, because that again was not super hard for me. And then just go in. This one's a little more snug, a little more challenge. Let's do 5. Three more. Two. And then one more. And then we'll go in just a little bit further, because I think I maybe have a little bit more room. So I would just keep going until you feel like you're like, yeah, that's it. Like there's no more room left. That's my max point. And then you do 5 of them and you let it settle. Okay, so I'm gonna go for 5 here. Wish me luck. Yeah, so that's my max point. That's 1. We'll go 2. Big breaths, you gotta keep breathing while you do it. And uncomfortable is okay, but you're never going for sharp shooting pain. So if ever you're doing something like this and you're just like, no, 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 then the answer is no, right? Just listen to your bodies. You guys know your edges best. And you gotta tune into that edge. This is 4. You know, and sometimes the more you do it too, it'll start to lubricate and wake up a little bit so it doesn't feel as intense as the first couple do. Yeah, okay, so I would call that good. And you'll just set that off to the side. So once your shoulders have a little bit of space, we're gonna take it into the next thing. And the next thing we're gonna do is actually open up the thoracic spine. So a lot of backward bends, the first and major part of backward bending happens from your lumbar spine, and it's the section of the spine that's really made to go backwards, and so oftentimes we'll collapse and compress into the low back, and that's where a lot of low back injuries can happen. We have a ton of compression in the low back as it is with just walking and sitting and things. So the goal of a backward bend is to find full expression of compression along the entire spine as you backward bend, and not only in the lumbar spine at the low. So part of some of the work that we do in order to open up the spine, in order to go into deep backward bends, is opening up the thoracic spine so that you can bend up into a higher portion of the spine, get your chest to come back, and this part of the spine to actually open and release so that the low back doesn't bear all the weight. It bears enough of the weight as it is. So the first variation is puppy. This is one that you can do on your mat and at any time. And so you'll come into kind of a tabletop position with your hips stacked over your knees. From here, you walk your hands forward towards the top of your mat, and then you just keep sliding them forward till your chest sinks low. And then with your hips still left in the air, let your chest come down as far as it goes. So from here, your chin might touch the floor, or your forehead might come to the floor. And either one, make sure there's weight in your hands. Okay, the weight in your hands is gonna give you a little bit more space so you can let your thoracic spine sink. And this will be one of the key factors in opening up the upper back and chest so that you can bend more deeply. So we're gonna take, let's say, about 5 breaths in this kind of puppy position, and just let gravity do a little bit of the work here. Make those 5 breaths really long, like as long as you possibly can, and then we'll back out. Puppy pose is a little bit of a gentler variation of the next one that we're gonna do, which is melting heart. Melting heart we do up against a wall because there's just a lot more range of motion and a lot deeper that we can open up the chest and start to really backward bend up into the higher portions of the spine. So we're gonna meet standing. All right, so you'll wanna find a blank wall, or your door, or the back of your door will work just fine for something like this, but you wanna be able to get your hands up nice and high on something. So this is melting heart. It's a really great chest opener, really good for opening up the thoracic spine. So from here, you'll just take your hands over your head and you'll kind of back away. You know, there's probably like a foot, maybe 2.5 feet in between my abdomen and the wall. And then you'll let your hips press back, your hands slide down, and your chest sink towards the wall. So if that kind of foot didn't feel like quite enough, or your chest is already at the wall and you're like, what do I do next? Then you just step your feet back out. Same kind of thing. And then you'll just let your chest sink towards the wall again. Your hands will slide, it's okay. And then you come back to your breath. Couple of notes. It's pretty normal for your fingers to fall asleep in this one. So if they do, you just come out, let them get their blood back, and then just come back in. So we'll stay here for a few breaths. I kind of say, as long as you can stand. This is also a really good one if you tend to work on a desk, behind a desk a lot, or you drive in a car, or you're just a normal human on your phone and your computer a lot. And so this one's really good for reversing some of that forward rounding, really great for your posture. So my fingers are starting to fall asleep, so I'm gonna back out. And you'll just kind of let the blood kind of flow back into your fingers and your hands, and we'll just do it one more time. And then we'll go into some more actual backward bending stuff. So it'll be fun. Let's jump back in. Palms up, hips back. Let your chest sink. See if you can kind of find a little bit of relaxation. Let the space you're creating feel good. Push the wall away. Whew. Okay, can be a rather intense one. Okay, so next we're gonna start wall walks. And if you're not familiar with what wall walks are, they are what they sound like they are, right? We're gonna walk the wall. So essentially, we're going to take about an arm's width distance in between you and the wall. And from there, you'll start to backward bend. So this is a really great way to start to teach your body how to go from a standing position to all the way on the floor where you go into, walk yourself into wheel. So this is just a safe way to do it. That being said, if your spine is clearly telling you no, right? Again, you know your edges best. Then back off, give yourself a little bit of time, forward fold, stretch, and then if you want to do it again, you jump back in. So let's go ahead and start. I just usually start with about a hand's width distance, palm flat. Make sure your feet are open, hip width distance, maybe even a little wider, because the wider you are, the easier it will be to be able to get into your backward bend, and then you can add challenge by bringing your feet hip width distance. But you're always gonna want them at least hip width distance for any of these backward bends that we're working with. So hip width distance, I'm just gonna go a little bit wider, more like towards my shoulders. And then you're gonna take a big breath in, you reach all the way up. And as you exhale, you'll start to take yourself back. You'll go all the way back till your fingertips touch the wall. So this might feel like enough, and then you can back your way out. The next step will be stretch up as tall as you can, literally like you're lifting your ribs up and off your hips. And then you'll start to go back. You'll reach to touch for the wall, and then eventually you'll start to walk yourself down the wall. So as you're walking, eventually you're gonna have to bend at the knees, right, when you get down far enough, and you'll just start to walk down. You might get to, like this point, and then wanna come back up. So know that when you start to walk the wall, you might get a little dizzy. It might feel a little like, what is happening? Just take a breath, right? And then come back. So we're gonna do a few of these, and I'll just show you a few of the expressions and a few little moments that you can kind of play in, and it'll be fun. So let's do it. Once you've done a few rounds of those wall walks, you can take a few forward fold stretches. And then what's always really important when you're sealing off your backward bending work, you want to do some abdominals. So make sure to give yourself about a minute plank or a minute boat hold or a minute hollow back. I'll just take a quick little plank Shoulders over elbows, you'll pop up onto your toes, little tuck your tailbone under, nice and strong from here. Hope you'll push the floor away, abs in, nice and strong, little tuck, big breaths. Right, and you'll just hold for a minute. If the shoulders are feeling a little snug, then you can always come into kind of this boat position, and you can just hold your boat, right? Nice and easy. Maybe the legs go all the way up, you get a really tall boat, maybe you go really short, but just make sure to turn on the abdominals. Super, super important at the end of any backward bending practice. Get your abs turned back on, whether it's like 30 bicycles, just do something. Get your abs turned back on. So those are our drills today. Thank you so much for joining in. If you have any other questions about backward bending or how to deepen your practice, just let us know in the comments below. We are building a library of really awesome classes and videos and tutorials of how to get into posture safely, and so if you have something you want to see, let us know. Thank you so much for joining in and tuning in. If you don't already, please like and subscribe to our channel below, and have a great rest of your day.